Hi, welcome to Market Week in Review for the week ending May 22nd, 2026. This week in markets, I think three themes stood out. First, we're towards the tail end of the first quarter reporting season for corporates, and we're seeing strong global earnings growth here that is helping sustain equity markets. Second, this week, more data around the resilience or not of the global business cycle to the conflict in the Middle East and the protracted disruption to commodity supply. And then third and finally, it seems like 2026 is really shaping up here to be a year of blockbuster IPO activity, with SpaceX announcing its intention to go public in as soon as the next couple of weeks. Starting with earnings, with NVIDIA reporting its results on Wednesday, we're now towards the tail end of first quarter results. In the United States, the numbers were really terrific here in Q1. We're tracking earnings growth on a year-over-year basis of north of 20% for the S&P 500 index, which is really quite strong, and pretty encouraging management guidance looking out into the second quarter, particularly for the IT sector and also some of the commodity-linked sectors, helping to support ongoing upgrades to analyst earnings estimates. So I think that healthy earnings picture is keeping equity markets on track. This week through Thursday's close, we're seeing gains across most major regional equity markets. The S&P 500 index is tracking a gain of about 0.5% on the week. The MSCI All Country World Index, about 1%. The MSCI Emerging Markets Index, a gain of about 1.5%. So pretty solid and broad global results through Thursday's close. Second is economic data and the resilience or not of the global business cycle. I would say at a high level, what we're seeing is a pretty resilient picture in the United States, but some fraying and risk and slowing in economies that are more exposed to the energy shock. So starting with the United States, this week, a couple of things stood out to me. We got the May purchasing manager indices, and on the manufacturing side in particular, we saw a lot of strength with that segment moving up to a 46-month high in the survey, where it seems like some of the fiscal stimulus from last year and the AI build out are helping to support industrial activity in the United States. The consumer also looks like it's continued to be engaged here through mid-May. And when we look at the labor market, both in terms of job growth through some of the weekly ADP figures, but also really low initial jobless claims, it seems like the labor market's pretty stable. So all in all, a U.S. picture that looks resilient. However, when we move across some of the global economies, particularly in Europe this week, the purchasing manager indices pointed to a slowing in activity for the month of May, where both in the Eurozone and the UK, those PMIs dropped below the 50 line and suggest that growth in the region could be stalling. And I think that bears some watching here in the weeks and months ahead, particularly if the conflict and commodity supply disruption persists into the second half of 2026. And then third and finally is the IPO calendar. It seems like 2026 is shaping up to be a blockbuster year of record IPO activity in dollar terms. This week, some big news with SpaceX announcing its intention to go public, listing on the NASDAQ exchange with a share sale scheduled for potentially as early as mid-June. This is a big deal in size, with some of the valuation numbers that are being talked about potentially placing SpaceX as being one of the 10 biggest public companies in the world after the transaction. So it's been an area of conversation with our clients, engaging around what kind of solutions they might be able to think about from a tax perspective, a concentration perspective, and a hedging perspective as a private market winner transitions into a large concentrated public market exposure in portfolios. So a lot of engagement around how to think about those issues. That's what stood out to me in markets this week, but ultimately a positive one in terms of near-term performance for equities and some stabilization in interest rates and energy markets. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you again soon.
Hi, I'm Sophie Antal-Gibert, Head of Portfolio and Business Consulting at Russell Investments. If you liked what you just saw and heard, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or check us out on LinkedIn. Thanks for tuning in.